How's it going, guys? I'm 𝐇𝐄𝐀𝐕𝐄, and today's video is another list of really cool Android apps. All of them are free, though there are some paid upgrades in some of them. And also, even though this is a list of Android apps specifically, a lot of these are also available on iOS, so it may be worth checking if you have an iPhone even. But anyway, why don't we just get started? Number one, this one's actually really cool and it's brand new, and it is the Steam Link app, and it's actually currently in beta, but you can download it from the Google Play Store. And basically this works with Steam. You may know it puts all your video games on your computer, and it actually has a streaming capability. You may know that Steam had like a Steam Link box that you could plug into the TV. Well, now this Steam Link app will allow you to stream basically any game on your computer onto your phone. So you basically control it with some gestures, and obviously this is not going to work with every game. There's going to be like a limited number of games that will support phone controls, if at all any right now. If you're not super familiar, the basics is that your main computer will do all the rendering and simply stream the video to your phone, and then you can control it, like I just said, with some gestures. For example, one tap is just clicking, two taps simultaneously with two fingers is a right click, and three will bring up the keyboard. Then you can also stretch it to zoom in and that sort of thing. And it does stream with the same big picture mode that you would get with the Steam Link box. And while there are limited controls, which is going to limit the amount of games you can play on it, you can actually still use the Steam Link app to basically do a remote control of your computer. If you minimize the big picture mode while you're streaming it, it'll still stream the rest of your desktop. So you can basically just control the rest of your desktop if you want, even if you don't want to play any games on it. And again, you don't even have to own any games. If you just want a good remote desktop software, you could just download Steam and use it just as that if you really wanted. All right, next up, number two. This one's called Coding Planets, and this is kind of like a really interesting way to teach the concepts of programming to someone who really hasn't had any experience with that at all before. And it doesn't really do any actual coding. It's more like the concepts, and there are basically three planets, or like lessons, and you go into each one, and there are individual lessons within each planet. And so some examples might be if statements or loops or functions and that sort of thing. And you basically just put commands into a robot, and then it teaches you, oh, okay, so this is how the programming works. And it does, of course, get a little bit more complicated and get more in-depth than how I may have described it, but it's still worth checking out. There's not that much content to it. I'm assuming they're gonna be adding more. So it's really just the very basics. If you've never programmed at all before, this is a good way to at least kind of get accustomed to how it might work and how you might wanna have to think when you do get into actual programming. Number three, this one's called Unified Remote, and it basically allows you to control basic functions on your computer. So what you have to do is install the server software on your computer that you want to control, and then you can use your phone to connect to it, and then you have several different options on how you want to control that computer. So basic input, or a file manager, or media player controls. Then there's also some power options like turning your computer off, or putting it to sleep or hibernate, or even turning your computer on if it was off, assuming your computer and LAN card supports Wake on LAN. The free version does work, but it's pretty basic. There is a paid version that has a lot more features and controls and remotes. For example, there's a lot of different app-specific remotes, so some for Chrome and Firefox, and then it'll also let you stream the screen to it, like any sort of VNC server or something like that. But if you want pretty much just a media controller, the free version will at least work like that, or maybe even File Manager as well. Okay, number four, this one's called Mobile Passport, and this one probably isn't going to be useful by a lot of people. It's mostly for people within the United States and Canada who do a lot of traveling, kind of a niche app, but it is an official app by the government, and I think for those of you who could use it, it'll be very useful. What it does is you take your passport info and your personal info, and you can load it all into the app. And then that way, when you're going through customs and you have to declare all the items you're bringing and all that stuff, you can basically put in all the info ahead of time, answer the survey questions and stuff, and then that way you can skip the line and go right to the inspection if you get chosen for an inspection. I'm not 100% sure how it works, but you can skip a lot of the BS and skip all the stuff that you can just do on your phone. And the nice thing about it is you don't have to apply and get approved to use it or anything like that. It's just free, no approval required. So it's a little bit better if you don't have global entry, which is a whole nother thing. I'm not going to get into that, but that might be faster. This is good if you don't really travel often enough to use global entry, but you still want to use it if you're going to be traveling between the countries. All right, moving on. These next three are actually made by Google themselves, although they aren't installed by default on Android as far as I know, at least on most phones, so you might still find them useful. So number 5 is called Datalee, and this basically allows you to manage data usage, especially if you have a limited data plan. So it allows you to not only see which apps are using the most data, but it will also allow you to restrict those apps from using any data at certain times, and it will also allow you to connect to like trusted Wi-Fi easier, so it'll allow you several different options for saving data usage. And even if you don't want to limit data usage, it still would be useful to be able to track data usage with different apps. You can also use this with the data saver feature, which is built into the latest versions of Android, and that will actually allow you to restrict data usage and disable background data usage altogether at certain times, or you can choose to have exceptions for certain apps if you want to let them through, and you can allow that to be toggled on and off. So if there are times when you want to limit it specifically, this app will allow you to just turn it on and off. And if you go to the section called Manage Data Options, it will actually not only tell you which apps are using the most data, but even what times most data was being used. So really cool if you just want to get a little bit more info about all that stuff. Next up, number 6, this one's called Trusted Contacts, and it's very similar to the Find My Friends feature with iOS. And basically what you do is you can choose a certain number of trusted friends, and then that will allow them to basically send a request to your phone to see where you are. And of course, it's optional on your side. So what happens is they send a request, and then you'll get a pop-up or something that says, yes, send my location, or no, I don't want them to know where I am. Although another nice feature is if you don't respond within a certain number of minutes that you can choose, then it will actually automatically send your location to the person who requested it. So it's kind of like an emergency feature. If you don't have access to your phone, or you're passed out or something, then they request it, by default, it'll send it back. So this will be good for like parents with kids or something, and they might not mind it as much because they can deny the request if they want, or, if they are just like gone, you can't figure out where they are. It's at least a little bit of peace of mind that if they can't respond, you'll still be able to find out. All right, number 7, this one is FilesGo. Now, you may know in the past I've talked about there's Go apps that Google has made, which are meant to be like lightweight apps that are typically going to be used on like lower power budget phones, but you can use the apps on any phone you want. And the FilesGo app is nice because it has some features specifically dealing with saving data storage on your phone. So it's going to have things that will allow you to free up space, like the ability to remove junk data like temporary files, or if there are photos that are already backed up to Google Photos, so you don't necessarily need them on your phone, it will give you the option to delete them there. And it'll also let you actually see which apps are taking up the most space and how often you use those apps. So if there's apps that it notices you almost never use and takes up a lot of data, might not be a bad idea to just delete that, and then you could always re-download if you really want. But not only does it let you save space, it actually has a built-in file manager as well. And a cool thing is, I was actually kind of surprised by this, it lets you send files to nearby friends who also might have the app. So that's pretty cool. Lots of features built into that one, might be worth getting. Okay, number 8, this one's actually kind of unique and cool. It's called UV Lens. And the idea is it will tell you what times of the day for your area have the highest risk for UV exposure and getting burned by the sun. And it actually will allow you to enter in some extra information to be a little bit more accurate. So information about your skin tone, your hair color, your eye color, your gender, all that sort of thing. And it will take all that into account and actually calculate, based on that, how long it might take you to get burned at that particular location and at that particular time, which is really awesome. And you do have the option between two different ways of displaying the UV risk. So it will show just like a very basic, very low to very high, and then it'll show some flames from 1 to 5, or you can actually have it show the UV index, which is a scale from 1 to 10, which I think makes a little bit more sense. And then it will even have a feature in there where you can put in like suntan lotion, and it will have information that you can put in like what SPF it is it water resistant, like what you're gonna be doing, are you gonna be going in the water, and then give you an idea of how long before you're gonna have to put more on. So I think this would be a really cool app if you're like gonna be going to the beach or something, or you're gonna be spending all day outside. This isn't a bad thing to at least take a look at and see, all right, well, this is like the maximum UV at this time. I better put on some suntan lotion, or also I'm gonna be burned in like a few minutes. All right, coming near the end, we got a couple more. Number 9 is called Life Hacks. And this, like you can probably guess from the name, is basically just a big database of different life hacks that have either been user submitted or by the app developer. And you can select different categories like technology life hacks, or food, or stuff like that. There's also a trending section, I guess, for whichever ones are most popular. It might not be a bad idea to look there, and you can also bookmark some to keep some in mind later. Though the thing is, you might want to double check some of them. If it sounds a little bit like BS, it might be. I saw one that said something like, charging your phone while using it is bad for the battery, and that's why cables for charging are short. That's not true, that's just BS, so you might want to double check some of them. Some of them are cool and actually useful, others, I don't know where they got that info. Okay, finally, number 10, this one's called Wi-Fi Analyzer, and you could probably guess what the purpose of this one is. And it does a few different things actually though. So it will show you the different strengths of Wi-Fi signals around you, but not only that, it has a couple tools, including one that will actually show you which Wi-Fi channel is the most open, and it can show you a graph of the whole Wi-Fi spectrum and which Wi-Fi access points around you, like in your apartment complex or whatever, are using which frequencies and which channels. So your router should be doing this automatically, but maybe if you are having some trouble with a connection, you can use this to take a look and say, oh, maybe I'll try switching my router to channel 11 or something, because it looks like this one's completely open, and it will tell you which one's the best. So it's just a pretty cool tool. It also might give you a good idea about best place to put your router, or how much signal strength you have for each channel depending on where you are in the house. You can do a lot with it, and it's basically just gonna give you all that info you need. Some of you guys, that might be a little bit too advanced, but it's worth checking out. So that is it. Hopefully you guys found this video helpful. You can let me know what you think down in the comments. Are there some apps that I didn't mention that you think are really cool that no one's really heard of? And also be sure to check down there in case someone did talk about some that are really cool. If you want to keep watching, I'll put some other videos right here. You can just click on those. And if you want to subscribe, I make a few new videos every week, so it should be worth it. So thanks again for watching, guys. I'm looking forward to hearing from you. Have a good one.